wiser feller than myself once said, sometimes you eat the turd sandwich, sometimes the turd sandwich, well, it eats you.
I wanted to briefly mention something. So, let me see. I think it was maybe a week and a half ago. I got my first paid writing gig.
Really?
It's the first time I got a paid writing gig where I'm not the one sourcing people out, and yes, I get paid some through Kickstarter. Like after I buy stuff, but really like anything that's profit, I usually just put back into buying more books or whatever.
Yeah.
But this was the first time someone hired me, and I liked it. I'm pretty much done with the job. Uh, I got hired about a week and a half ago. It's nothing major. It's a anthology that someone is doing. I won't say too much about it, but it's harkening back to pulpy comics. I don't think that's an issue of saying. It's harkening back to pulpy comics, and they wanted me to. I've worked with them before, like not a lot, but I've worked with them before, and they like my comedic writing and stuff. They wanted a short comedy in this. They were like, "Hey, I'll pay you and hire you if you can do a 4-page story in this," and wound up doing a sci-fi comedy. But what was supposed to be 4 pages expanded to, because I remember I was writing it, and what sucked is I remember writing this one idea. The first idea was a Green Lantern parody. It was a noir detective Green Lantern parody.
Yeah.
Which I might still do something with, because I have a lot written down for that. The issue with that is I could not contain that within 4 pages. I couldn't contain that within like 6, 7 pages. Like that's like at least like a 10-page story. So I was like, all right, I have to throw this on the back burner. What sucked about that is when it comes to writing these shorts where it's like a 4-page comic or a 6-page comic, I can usually do that in a day. Like a few hours, I can usually knock that out.
Yeah.
What was frustrating is I had this parody Green Lantern idea and I just kept sticking with it. And it was Saturday, it was Sunday, and then half of Monday, I was still trying to make it work. And it wasn't till like halfway through that Monday, I was like, okay, I hate to do this. I just have to chuck this in the bin because I'm spending way too much time on this. This is not my usual normal speed for writing this sort of stuff. So clearly something is not working. So that was something that like, and again, it's like, oh, you only spent 2 to 3 days on it. It's not that big of a deal. But for me, it was a big deal because like I'm not used to spending that much time on something and then, or something like this, and then just throwing it away essentially.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I did, because that Monday afternoon to like the following morning, I wrote a freaking script for another story. It took me like what it normally should, like less than 24 hours. So I did that. I'm proud of it. The thing is it's supposed to be 4-page script. I get done writing and I'm like, okay, I'm done with the script. There's an issue here. Let me message the guy and make sure this is okay. And I messaged him. I was like, hey, I know you said 4-page script, ... The script is 6 pages. Is that okay? But he was like, yeah, that's fine. Because I told him like
you're
with
fired.
the 6 I told him with the 6 pages, I was like, I'm not going to charge extra for the 2 additional pages. That's on me. But I think the story works better with stretching it with 2 more pages. He said, yeah, that's fine. As long as if it helps like breathe the story out more, that's fine. I was like, yes, thank you. And then he sent me edits back 2 or 3 days ago, and I applied those edits, and I also made some changes and stuff to where it's now 7 pages.
Oh.
So, but
Could you make
but
this
but
longer? Actually,
do what?
Could you make this longer? Actually, we're gonna need about a 22-page story.
Yeah. It's like, all right, can you actually write the whole issue?
No,
Actually,
we just turned this into a 12-issue maxi series, and it's all your story somehow. So it's not much of an anthology anymore.
And you're still getting paid for
the 4 pages.
For the 4 pages. That's the payment for this 12-issue maxi series.
We'll pay you an exposure.
But no, like it went well. The
issues
7
are 40 pages a pop, so they're all double length. It comes out bi-weekly, so get cracking. So the bi-weekly where it's every other week, not the bi-weekly where it's 2 a week.
Yeah.
Sorry, fortnightly is what we should be saying. Hey, everybody out there. Okay, just a second. Everybody out there, I have a brief rant. Very brief. Yeah, it won't be long enough for you to forget what you're talking about.
You're good.
Everybody out there. So I know that bi-weekly technically works for both twice a week and once every 2 weeks. Let's stop using it for the once every 2 weeks thing, because there is a word that also suits that purpose and is more clear. Fortnightly.
That does make sense.
Because bi-monthly is also
that's
applicable to either twice a month or once every 2 months. So fortnightly is better, because that specifically means once every 2 weeks. There is no alternate translation of that.
Yeah, I like that.
All right, anyway, back to what you were saying.
Oh, but yeah, like the big change with the edit, and he had mentioned like doing the first page, because originally the first page was like 6 or 7 panels. He had mentioned if you could possibly change it to where like these first 3 panels are just a splash page instead of 3, like having all these panels. First page is like a splash page, like a classic comic with establishing shot and all that stuff.
I know you really wanted to demonstrate how long the main character's dong is by having it appear in 3 different panels simultaneously. But tightening that up and making it one splash panel is...
I think one splash panel can do with showing how big his penis is. And you get to truly show it off. It's a splash page.
Yeah.
He gets all the real estate. That's what the splash page is. It's just a giant penis on the page, and then there's text all around it. But wound up being 7 pages. I sent the second draft, basically version 2 of it, to him last night, and literally while we were recording right now, like an hour ago, he emailed me back and was like, looks good. Do you do PayPal or Venmo? And so probably today I'll get paid for it. So
dang.
Yeah, it's good. I want to do more stuff like this. Like I'm honestly okay with this. This is the easy route of hiring me, where it's shorts. If people want me to do shorts for their anthology or whatever, heck yes. Like that's like I can do 22-page scripts. I can do a mini series for you. I can do all that stuff. Yeah. The thing that is a cakewalk for me, you have me do these shorts, like, oh heck yeah. Like that's where I feel, I'm not saying I'm like master or anything, but like in terms of what is truly my strength,
Yeah,
shorts. I
it's
feel
where
like
it's where you're
I'm
most comfortable.
great at shorts right now. Yeah.
Well, also, Brandon, if there's one thing I know about you, if someone did hire you for like a one-shot issue or a mini series or something, there would come a point in your writing process where you have to come to them and basically do what you did this time and be like, "Hey, this is gonna like, is it okay if this is longer?" Because if there's one guy I know who can't let go of the ideas he wants to put in a story, most of the time, it's probably you. Because every single time you tell me about an idea, you're like, yeah, this is gonna be like half a second long. And then 3 years later, you're like, yeah, we're on issue 50 of
Yeah.
of the thing that was gonna be half a second long.
Yeah, I mean, like even to the degree of like, yeah, like whatever I say at the beginning, it's likely going to be longer. And even if I know it's going to be long, it's usually longer.
Yeah.
I knew Gallows Man #3 was going to be a long issue. I figured it'd be like issue 1 or 2, where it's 48 pages or something, which those are already long. But no, Gallows Man 3 is like 57 pages. So.
And that's the final issue, right? Or is it a 4-issue series?
This is the penultimate issue.
Okay.
The next issue will be the final. Yeah.
Dang, man.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's taken a lot of time, but a bunch of life stuff between me and Helen, like our lives and stuff. We're doing good. It's just like both of us have lives and stuff. But like that, as well as these aren't your average sized comic. It's not a 22 page comic. Like
these are
like,
magnum sized comics.
Yeah, a lot of these are like 2, if not 3 times the size of a normal comic.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's like reading a chapter of Saint Seiya.
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't, instead of coming out every 2 weeks though, it's like every 2 years.
Yeah.
But no, I'm glad we're still going with it. It's taken longer than I thought it would. Like if you went back and asked 2020, 2021 Brandon, hey, when do you think issue 4 will come out of Gallows Man? Probably would have said like 2024.
Mm-hmm.
But it's okay. I'm glad that it's still going. That's the key thing for me, is like, though there are delays and stuff, it's still going. So that's what I like about this. And Gallows Man #3 Kickstarter will come out early to late September. So that's coming up. The current date I have set is September 10th. There might be 1 or 2 things that might push it back a week or 2, but September I plan to have that Kickstarter out. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that, and I'm happy. I'm happy I got the first writing gig. It's small, but I'm happy I did it, and it makes me want to because I know different like comic writers and publishers that do anthologies and stuff. I now like really want to dive deep in that community. One, for like the friendships and stuff that are there, but also that networking that's there. That's like, hey, like, you guys got a project? Like, I'm down with putting my stuff out, because I know I've got a bunch of anthology series that I want to make in the future under Dismay Comics or whatever, or through a publisher or whatever. But like, yeah, I wouldn't mind doing like a short in someone's anthology or a backup in someone's comic or something.
Yeah, and for the future, I still definitely want to write comic books, but recently my mentality has been pivoting more towards novels.
Yeah.
And so and for me in the future, the thing is, there is a more, I'm gonna say like self-publishing a novel is probably going to end up being a lot easier than self-publishing a comic book. Like
Yeah.
like for you, like there's no real structure in place to easily self-publish a comic book, so you ended up having to do a ton of research and a ton of work and figuring a ton of things out yourself to get your first comics off the ground. Whereas for me, with my pivot more towards novels, which again, I still want to write comic books. And I know I've put this on the table before, but if you ever need me for like a short thing for an anthology, you can always hit me up.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, like, for the longest time, I haven't had any time to write, and it still feels like I don't have like a lot of time to write. But which is probably why I haven't managed to write anything. It's just with school and work and everything, it all gets in the way and it eats at you. I'm really hoping, honestly, that once I graduate, I'll have more mental and emotional space to actually put forth the effort to write. But yeah, I something that I've found though, especially because it was taught to me through one of my classes in my last term, that there are actually a lot of avenues for self-publishing a book provided by larger companies like Amazon and stuff, if you're good with publishing digitally, which I definitely am, that make it a great deal easier to self-publish a novel than a comic book.
Easier and cheaper.
Yeah. A lot cheaper.
Yeah. I think that's
to self-publish my first work. I don't expect like my earliest works to turn a huge profit or anything like that. But the thing is, they don't necessarily have to, because it would be very cheap to get in the first place. So it's at that point, a huge part of why I want to self-publish novels in the first place is so that I can build up a backlog of titles that I can leverage to get deals with actual publishers.
Yeah, I was about to say, like that's like, even if like the first or second novel like isn't like gangbusters, you have that backlog there.
Yep.
And one, for deals with publishers, but also if a book blows up, it can just happen randomly sometimes.
Oh yeah,
if a book blows up, you have a backlog to where those people that like your writing in this book, some of them will turn and see what else you got.
Yeah, and like I've got that, and also again, kind of with the publisher thing, I would have a backlog for agents and editors to look at, to see like what my previous work is like and whether or not my future work is something they want to push.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's I have a strategy. But yeah, because like I realized that like I really like, something that I realized writing some short stories for school is that I really like writing in a like traditional like novelistic like prose style.
Right.
And so like it's what I have the most experience with, and it's what I've practiced the most, and at this point I've studied a good deal of other authors' styles. Like when I was reading through The Road and The Hunger Games and Gone Girl, I was paying very close attention to the way those three writers structured their prose and how they narrated each story.
Yeah.
So that I could figure out like, okay, here are good ways to do it. And something that really, really stood out to me in The Hunger Games especially is the fact that not just the fact that it's narrated in first person, but everything is narrated in present tense. So Katniss is not telling you about something that has happened to her. Katniss is communicating to you what is happening right now.
Yeah.
Which makes the story way more immediate and like way more visceral in a lot of ways. It gives you the impression that even as you're reading, Katniss doesn't know what's going to happen next. So it's a very interesting way to write, and it keeps the action more present in the reader's mind. It makes things more right in front of them.
Yeah.
So it's and that's a writing style that, as I began writing on a fantasy novel almost immediately after finishing the Hunger Games, that I adopted exactly that sort of style, is
Nice.
first person narrated, all in present tense, because I really like the way that Suzanne Collins figured that out, and how that makes Katniss. It also makes Katniss a more interesting protagonist, because through that you get to see her thought process, and like you get to read as she speculates on things and tries to figure things out ahead of time. So it can make for first person narrative, specifically in the present tense, makes for a really, really interesting protagonist, because you're inside their head and they're being active. Because if they're telling you everything in the past tense, then the entire story is passive.
Right.
So for Katniss to tell you everything in the present tense, again, it's an active story. She is there with you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really liked that style. It's the thing that stood out the most to me about the Hunger Games when I read it. And so it's something that I wanted to adopt for my own writing.
Yeah, I get that. It's much more engaging as a reader.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, you had mentioned like you mentioning that made me real, and something you had mentioned is like it's the thing that style of writing is the thing that you have gravitated toward the most / studied the most. I think that's like a crucial thing with like any type of creative writing or anything, whatever style it may be. Because yeah, I just thought about it, like one day I don't really see me writing a novel or anything like that. I might pull like a Norm Macdonald and make like a fake memoir or something like that. That's the closest thing I do.
Yeah.
But like even like a collection of like short prose or something like that, I wouldn't say I'm ready to do that right now. I've written a ton of long form comics and short comics, but it's one of those things where if and when I want to do that, I need to study that stuff more before I do that.
And you'll definitely want to study based on genre too. Like if you're planning to write horror, read some horror.
Yeah.
If you want to, because I know your sensibilities, and right now when you say, even if it's just like a short story compilation rather than like a full complete novel, I can see you writing primarily either more horror or like a really like pulp sci-fi sort of thing.
Yeah.
Based on what I know about you and your tastes.
Yeah. If it, yeah, with short stories I can bounce anywhere. But yeah, if it was like a novel or a novella, like it might go down horror route or sci-fi route for me, because that's like the ones I'm not trying to say this in a bad way. The story expands and stretches out more for those for me right now.
Yeah.
Something that I would love to do, because I'm so fixated on like comedy right now. If I was able to write a even if it was a novella, like a comedy novella, I'd be very proud of that, because that's tough. One, writing comedy in a book, a novel with no images.
That's one of the hardest things in the world to do.
And even if like your first, not saying jokes, but the interactions and stuff that can happen in the book are ultimately funny, and you can call them jokes themselves, sort of stuff. Even if like the first 10-15 pages is really funny or whatever it is, it can burn out. Like the humor can burn out, or it can just not be as funny as it keeps going.
Yeah.
Yeah, like writing comedy in a novel, I think, is one of the hardest like creative things to do, like good
Yeah.
comedy, because I
Yeah,
think it's
yeah.
harder. I think it's harder than making a comedy movie. We've already talked about how making a comedy movie is harder than making a comedy TV show.
Yeah.
I think writing a comedy novel is harder than making a comedy movie.
Because the thing is, when it comes to a comedy novel, you only have access to one sense, that is
Yeah,
sight, and you have to
yeah,
use words to describe what's happening. And the essence of comedy is timing,
yeah.
and you can't account for how fast someone's going to read.
Oh yeah,
So yeah, making a genuinely funny comedy book is one of the most difficult writing feats that I can think of,
yeah,
because you don't have access to any funny sounds that you can make, any super elaborate slapstick, because it would just take way too much description.
yeah.
Like there's you have nothing but the words on the page, and so yeah, that's really hard to make someone laugh with that.
Yeah.
The situation itself has to be humorous from the top down in order for that to work,
Oh yeah.
which I think is a huge part of why things like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is inherently funny, because the book itself is absurd top to bottom. So
Right.
it which is astounding to me that like it can do that, given that it is an adaptation of a radio play. But,
Right. Yeah.
because like even the radio play had like the actors and like the sound effects and the music that they could use to elicit a laugh. So it's
Yeah. I just thought about it like a just straight up comedy, like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy uh, comes to mind when you mentioned that, but just a straight up comedy that, because like, not saying it's the easiest thing, but it's easier if you're satirizing a genre of
yeah.
novels or a niche genre of novels. You can do that because like I really like Norm Macdonald's book, Not a Memoir.
Mm-hmm.
It's a slight parody slash satirizing memoirs,
Yeah.
um, through Norm Macdonald. Like, yes, you have the classic memoir stuff of this chapter is my childhood, this chapter is this chapter is that, but it goes to such extremes, and some of this is true, some of this is clearly not true, like him going to hell and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like that is easier. It's still tough. It's still tough to do that, but a straight up comedy that is not satirizing a genre of novels sounds nearly impossible to me.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioning satire reminds me, if you want a good, or what I personally think is a good study in, it is a satire, but it's also just an absurd comedy, and I love the way that like descriptions and stuff are done in it, is you should look up the Harvard Lampoon's Nightlight, which was a parody of Twilight.
Mm.
It's, I don't know if it super holds up, but I remember the last time I read it, because I loved this book when I was a teenager. It's a very funny and absurd parody of Twilight,
Yeah.
and but the thing is though, so much of what's in it is funny on its own as just absurd humor, because it does. One of the techniques it uses, and I use this in my own comedy a lot, even here on the podcast while speaking, as like a part of my improvised style, is it will do this thing where it omits details until they're relevant, and by the time it comes up, it's just funny to think about.
Yeah.
Like there's a sequence like right up top in the book where the main character, I can't quite remember her name. I think it's like Belle, just like Belle, I think is the main character's name, where she describes how she's looking at her own reflection in one of the mirrors in the car as she's like, moving, because that's how Twilight starts, is Bella is in the car moving to Washington. And over the course of this description, she manages to somehow omit the fact that she's not sitting in one of the seats of the car. She's squeezed herself between like the windshield and the dashboard. If I'm remembering correctly. So she like adjusts herself from there to get into one of the seats and like has to like untangle her body. And it's like one of those things where it's like, it's a detail that doesn't come up until it's relevant. And when she just brings it up out of nowhere, that's where the comedy comes in.
Yeah.
So it's really funny. And like, it's just, there's like a ton of examples of that sort of thing throughout the book that I can't rail off the top of my head, because it's been like more than 10 years since I've read it.
Right.
But I used to reread it pretty frequently because it was just such a funny book to me. And like, she falls in love with this pale nerdy dweeb named Ed Wart that she's convinced herself is a vampire. And like, the entire crux of the book is that she's this horrendously delusional young lady who believes that the boy she has a crush on is a vampire. And like, the only reason she has a crush on him is because she thinks he's a vampire. Otherwise, he's just this completely unappealing dork. And so like, through the whole book, she's like clinging to him and stalking him, and he's like, please just leave me alone. And she's convinced herself they're in love, and he like can't stand her. And it's just it's incredible. It's an incredible book. All he wants is to be alone because he's a dweeby little pale nerd. Yeah. It's I love it. It's a very funny book.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, it's called Nightlight by the Harvard Lampoon. The cover is a hand holding just an apple core, like the apple's been eaten.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, and like, the thing is, it knows, for the most part, it knows like what parts of Twilight are worth making fun of.
Yeah.
Like, obviously the absurdity of the whole "you're a vampire" thing, but also like Bella's apparent clumsiness, because there's this scene towards the beginning of the book where she like fully tumbles almost acrobatically down an escalator over people and like through an entire airport as she's arriving in her new home. And it's like, okay, that's that's funny. Like, that's the logical extreme of the clumsy beautiful character trope.
Yeah.
So it's I don't know how to I don't know how else to explain it. It's very funny. Yeah. But yeah, if you want good ways to like figure out just like an interesting way to write absurd prose, Nightlight is a good source. I would recommend Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, because there's just so much. There's so much in Hitchhiker's Guide that is absurd, just flat out. And I love how much of the narration from the radio play and the book makes it into other adaptations of Hitchhiker's Guide. Because it's always, the narrator is always explaining something so completely bonkers in just the driest, most matter-of-fact tone, no matter which version you're watching. And like, in particular, I love Stephen Fry's narration in the movie. Firstly, because it's Stephen Fry.
Yeah.
But also because it's just like, his delivery is so, it's got this like sort of mundane friendliness to it. Like, yes, he is just narrating what's happening, but because it's got that, that sort of cheerful lilt that Stephen Fry's voice naturally kind of has, even though it's so deep. Yeah. It still feels like it's a friendly robot talking to you rather than just a cold documentarian.
Right.
So yeah, like the entire everything in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is so completely absurd that it's so believably absurd. Like the absurdity is almost mundane in how it's presented,
Right.
because it's like, this is just what the galaxy is like. So it's and like everything is absurd in a way where it's like, yeah, that's just unpleasant enough to make sense.
Yeah.
Like the Babelfish. Which, how much about Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy do you know? Like, have you seen the movie?
I haven't seen the movie or read the book. I mean, like I remember having friends like recommending it a lot in like early middle school and late middle school. The movie I've wanted to see, I just haven't seen it yet.
I've not read the book, but I have seen the movie many times because I love that movie. And I've seen at least the first half of the TV miniseries that was made in like the 80s. But yeah, it's just so much of the comedy is in the narration with Hitchhiker's Guide.
Right.
And because like there are little things like the Babelfish, which is how Arthur, the main character, understands alien languages and can communicate with aliens, because what happens is there's this little leech-like fish in his ear that his alien friend Ford put in his ear, that feeds on like the sound waves that enter Arthur's ear, and it poops out like psychic understanding of those words, if I'm remembering correctly. So any alien language, the Babelfish eats the sound of the alien language and then poops out an understanding of that language for Arthur.
Okay.
Basically translating it to English for him.
Right.
Which is just the weirdest little idea. So
does he ever have to like dump his ear out, or?
No, not as far as I'm aware. Like neither the movie nor the miniseries tackle it, so I'm assuming the radio play and book don't either.
Okay.
Because it's not, because the Babelfish isn't eating or pooping anything physical.
Right.
It's just living in his ear, so it's just
okay. Yeah.
It's like a weird little psychic translator fish, and also there's that also kind of leads directly into the concept of Vogon poetry, which the Vogons are an ugly race of bureaucratic aliens. And they're like these big potato-shaped green things with spindly arms, and they are so soullessly bureaucratic that even their poetry is torturous to listen to. And like they actually read their own poetry to people they have captured as a torture method.
Okay.
So like, and the way that Vogon poetry, like in the movie, there's a scene where Arthur and Ford, like the two leads, are having Vogon poetry read to them while they are tied to posts. And as the poetry begins, the narrator cuts in to speak over it so that the audience can't hear it properly. And you just hear the Vogon like mumbling his poetry under the narrator, while Ford writhes in agony, and Arthur has this expression of absolute bewilderment on his face. And in the movie, Arthur's portrayed by Martin Freeman, so you can imagine how perfect that look on his face is.
Yeah.
And the narration simply explains it like, yes, Vogon poetry was deemed the third like worst type of poetry in the entire galaxy. So it's like, what are the two worst kinds? I think I can't remember because they do list the two worst kinds of poetry, but I can't remember what they were. But then like as it's coming out of it, like the Vogon asks for a review of his poem. It's a great scene. I don't want to spoil too much of it for you because it's a very funny movie. I recommend giving it a watch. But yeah, it's so perfectly cast too, because you got Martin Freeman as as Arthur Dent. Most Def is Ford. Sam Rockwell is Zaphod Beeblebrox, who is like the best character ever. And then Zooey Deschanel is a character named Trisha or Trillian, depending on who you're asking. But yeah, it's a great movie. A lot of people don't like it. A lot of fans of the book don't like it. I like it. I like that movie. It's a good movie. It's fun.
Okay.
It's got a great opening scene. I'm not gonna spoil that at all for you. But the opening scene, absolutely fantastic.
Okay. Yeah, I might have to.
One of the best opening scenes in cinema history. Actually, I'll say that. I know that might be overhyping it a little bit, but
yeah, I'll have to check it out because I've been watching a lot of serious documentaries and I've been on a documentary spree, and then like
I've been learning
horror movie here and there.
I've been getting educated. You think you're better than me?
Well, like nowadays, like I'm like I love my fiction stuff, but like I don't know, I've just been more in the mood for documentaries lately.
Yeah, I definitely get that. Every once in a while, you just get a bug up your butt to learn. Like I get that sometimes.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Well,
like there's so much in this world to know.
Yeah. And sometimes it's not even like extremely useful, but it's just like, oh, like this is entertaining to learn about this event or this person. Like I think the most recent one I watched, it's not the only documentary I watched recently. It was the most recent one I watched yesterday or the day before was Clerk. It's a documentary about Kevin Smith's filmography, essentially, slash like life a little bit, like life making the movies slash in between the movies. I think it was pretty good. I learned a little bit more. Like I've seen a lot of the, because there's usually a documentary, like a behind the scenes documentary for each movie he makes. That's most movies. Most movies have behind the scenes stuff on the thing, or they have a literal documentary about the making of said movie. And he has that for like all his movies. So this one kind of did like brief crash courses on some of that, but I don't know, it was entertaining. But I mention all that to say sometimes it's documentaries like that aren't even like that that important or informationally groundbreaking for me to learn. But it's not bad. And then yeah, horror movies. That's about the only stuff that's come out this summer.
Like, yeah, it's been a horror heavy summer, hasn't it?
I literally just thought about that a couple of days ago of like, we don't have a lot of good big blockbusters this summer yet. Obviously Deadpool's going to be the one that makes a lot of money and stuff. But yeah, I guess you have like Inside Out 2, you have Twisters. Like what else was the summer that wasn't horror?
I don't know, because the sorts of things that would have been like these big box office breaking blockbusters in previous years didn't get a whole lot of attention and aren't getting much of a push.
Yeah.
Like I feel like if it had come out like 3 years ago, Boy Kills World would have gotten a bigger push than it did.
I wish I had went to see that. I'll have to wait till it's on streaming. It might be on streaming now, but
yeah, I think it might be. But yeah, I also wanted to see that in the theater and just completely, I just didn't have time or money.
Yeah, because it was playing at a local theater for me for like a few days. Maybe it was just a weekend, and then it was just gone. But yeah, I want to see that eventually. But yeah, it's mostly been horror and like, I don't know, like this year isn't bad for movies or horror really, but specifically horror, like none of it has been like great or amazing. Like,
nothing groundbreaking this year.
Nothing groundbreaking this
Well, there
year.
was that In a Violent Nature that seemed pretty different.
So In a Violent Nature was different. And I'll say that. I'll say this. Like, even though I hated the last 15 to 20 minutes of that movie,
Yeah.
I had mentioned how I liked most of the rest of the movie. It's very
sorry, you keep going.
Oh, sorry. It's a very divisive movie. I can easily see why people would hate the movie if they hated it. I liked it overall, except for a log cutting scene that went way too long, and then the last 15 to 20 minutes. Speaking of groundbreaking, like you said, though, I think in terms of horror, that might have been the most groundbreaking horror movie we've had this year.
Yeah.
Even if you hated the movie, this is something very different.
Yeah, I just remembered that's the one where I made the joke that, like, as they were driving away, the killer should have disguised him, like, pretended to be the engine of the car. And
yeah.
I just remembered that joke.
We got to look at the engine. Just open the hood.
Oh my God! We have to write a horror movie that ends that way.
Yeah.
Now, like, we have to make it this completely straightforward and serious horror movie all the way right up until the end, and then
he pretends to be the engine. Yes, I like that. But yeah, like, and that wasn't even like my favorite horror movie of the year. Like, in terms of movies, that's actually far down on the list just because I hated that ending so much.
Yeah.
But yeah, most groundbreaking.
You also hate the creators of the movie because of it, right? You have like a personal against them now.
I'm hunting that guy down.
Oh yeah, and the camera's following you while you do it instead of him.
Yes.
That's groundbreaking.
Hear the not really crunching of leaves. I'm just going to be walking down the LA streets, and you're just going to hear plop, 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 because that's what my feet sound like when they hit ground. Plop, 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 plop.
Yeah, you're not wearing your shoes. It's just going to be the wet slap of naked feet against concrete.
Yeah.
Plop, plop,
and
plop, plop, plop.
3 hours later, I finally find him, and I don't kill him. I actually go away. Just like the end of his movie.
You just show up to intimidate him and be like, "This is how easy it could have been."
Yes, I could have killed you. But yeah,
what was your number one for the year so far?
What was my number one? Like, let me look at something real quick. Abigail was good. I hope it's not my number one though, because it wasn't like amazing.
Is that
Abigail was good. I'm not discrediting Abigail, but I would be very shocked if that's my number one of the year so far.
Yeah, is Abigail, does Abigail go for real horror, or is it more of just like a
it's
closed in the room with the monster sort of thing?
It's fun horror. It's not really, you're not going to be scared from it.
Okay, yeah.
And I don't even know if I'd really say horror comedy. There's comedic elements, but that's a lot of horror movies. A lot of horror movies.
Is it more of an action movie? Would you say?
Or
because I've only seen the trailers. I've not seen the movie in like itself yet.
I mean, there are action elements, but if you go that route, you could say a lot of horror movies are that.
Okay, yeah.
Like if you go that route, you could say, well, I almost would say this. Like the movie Ready or Not, with Sigourney Weaver's daughter that came out a few years ago. I'd say that's action horror.
Okay.
But no, it's, I don't know. I know it's not a genre, but the best way I'd put it is it's just fun horror. Like, yes, there's people dying and stuff, and yeah, you may care about some of the characters here and there, but it's just a good time. You as the watcher watching over all the stuff happening in this universe of this movie. You're like, man, this is a good time.
I am the watcher, and I'm going to the theater to see Abigail.
I'm going to see Abigail.
I have invited my friends, Captain Peggy Carter, and one of the cool versions of Thor, and
Yes.
like Party Thor or whatever we're calling him. And I know he was a
And
bad guy
hey,
in season 2, but Strange Supreme.
here's Thanos killing Gamora. A lot of y'all didn't see her in that first season.
Yeah.
You saw her at the end, I think. I can't remember.
She
I
was,
am the
yes,
watcher. I should know that.
She actually in her what if scenario, there was we did the episode to explain her in season 2.
Yes.
And it was a whole thing where it was wacky racers on Sakaar, with Iron Man and Gamora. It was like a PG rated version of Redline, kind of. It's and then I got her. I picked her up. I was like, "You're helping me." And then when we were done, I put her back. And then there was no follow up.
Nice. Yeah, I'm looking at the horror movies that came out this year, and I saw a lot of them, not all of them, but like, yeah, in terms of like I'm not saying a horror movie has to straight up be all about the scares, because horror is such a broad genre.
It just needs to give you the willies.
Sometimes, but sometimes you have something like Abigail where you don't get the willies, but there are a ton of horror elements.
Yeah. Well, vampires
having a good
generally
time.
give me the willies because I'm really uncomfortable about like blood and sharp objects.
That's true. I just thought about it. There are likely people like when you see Abigail in the movie or when you see this scene or that scene that like probably like are like genuinely like, oh my gosh, that's terrifying. Not a jump scare thing. There's no jump scares, but more
That
like, oh, that's
the willies.
Yeah, that gave me the willies. I think I'm just like so desensitized to all these horror movies to where like that doesn't affect me. It's more just like I'm along for a good ride. Abigail ripped that guy's head off. Ah ha ha ha.
You laugh like a super villain about it.
Just in the middle of the theater. Blood spurting from his head.
Baby fall down.
But yeah, now thinking about like as broad of a genre horror is, and this one I don't know if a lot of people liked, but I think it's good, if not pretty good. My personal opinion. I liked Lisa Frankenstein a good bit.
Okay.
Like that might be my favorite one of the year so far.
That's a movie I keep forgetting even exists in the first place.
That one was pretty good.
I don't think I've heard about that until well after it had been out.
Oh yeah. Like that's one that I could see me like revisiting every couple years sort of thing. It was just a good time. There's obviously horror elements to it, but yeah, that was a good time. And then I guess like a somewhat close second might be Maxine. I thought Maxine was good. I didn't think it was great. Didn't think it was amazing. It doesn't compare to Pearl. Like of that trilogy, the X, Pearl, and Maxine. Pearl's like really good. Pearl is the Dark Knight of that trilogy.
Okay.
That's how I see it. Okay. I'm not saying it's as good as the Dark Knight. I'm just saying of that trilogy, that's how I would compare it. Is Pearl is really good. And then the other two, Maxine is good. And then X is okay to fine. Like there are some people that really like X. I think it's okay. It's fine. But yeah, I don't know. Like everything else is either disappointments or it's like, yeah, I guess it's worth seeing. It's fine. Like Late Night with the Devil, that David Dashmalian horror movie.
Dashmalchian?
Dashmalchian, thank you. That one was overall good. I didn't like the ending. I think a lot of people didn't like the ending. It got too over the top. And then A Quiet Place Day One. It's a little bit better than I thought it'd be. Like, I knew it wouldn't be bad. I wasn't expecting it to be great or amazing. It's worth seeing. And then, like, the biggest disappointment was Long Legs.
Oh, really?
Long Legs is fine to good. I'm not saying it's a bad movie at all. The issue is how overhyped. It's very overhyped.
Okay. Yeah.
Like all the reviews, all the advertisement, all the marketing, I think was honestly like a detriment to it in terms of quality. Box office wise, I think it helped. I think it got a lot of people to go see it and make a decent amount of money. But for rating it, I think myself and a lot of people see it as very overhyped. If it wasn't as hyped, we'd probably say like, man, that was a good movie, or that was a really good movie. But
yeah,
I mean, it isn't a bad movie, but it is not what all the critics and what the marketing tells you of, like, the scariest movie in the past decade, or Nicolas Cage will have you shitting your pants.
Yeah.
Like, none of that stuff.
Nicolas
like,
Cage will, if you watch this movie, he'll actually break into your house at night.
Nicolas Cage is like, and that's the thing with the movie, all performances are good. I don't think I'm not going to say any of the performances were like amazing. All the performances were good. The cinematography is honestly the thing that does the heavy lifting in this movie. The cinematography is beautiful. The cinematography is what got me to go see this. Like, when I first saw the trailer a few months ago,
Yeah,
it's what made me want to go see it, because it's very creepy cinematography. It did a lot of heavy lifting. If it didn't have as great cinematography, it'd be like an okay horror movie. But yeah, the plot, the story, it's not bad. I don't know. I guess it might deal with the plot or story as why it's like not great. Because casting's great, cinematography's great. It's just something is meh. And I guess it might be the plot or story. But yeah, I guess, like, if I'm rambling and trying to make horror recommendations, Lisa Frankenstein for sure. I think this is going to be a hidden gem movie in the future. I really like it. I think it's underrated. If you look at the ratings and reviews of it online, a lot of times it's like 6 out of 10 or lower. And I'm like, really? Like, not a 7, not a 7.5? Because I don't even know if I'd say it's like 8 out of 10 or higher. But I think it's like worthy of a 7 or 7.5. But yeah, Lisa Frankenstein, as well as Abigail. I think those are some good watches. But yeah, that's me rambling about horror movies. I don't know how I got on that.
Because I asked you, like, what horror movies you liked for the year.
Yeah, but I don't know how I got on talking about horror movies for you to ask that.
Oh, I don't know. We mentioned something about horror. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, we were talking about like movies.
Right. Yeah.
Year.
About how many horror movies there are.
Now there's a
like.
There's a ton of horror movies this summer. Yeah. Which is cool. I like to see how big horror is doing. I just wish there were more great or amazing stuff. But
yeah, we seem to be in a bit of a new horror boom right now.
Oh yeah. What's the cheapest thing for studios to do?
Yeah.
It's like the guarantee to definitely make your money back, if not a decent profit.
Yeah. Definitely.
Even if the movie is dog crap, like Night Swim, like I'm sure it made at least, at the very least, twice of what the budget was, if not 10 times what the budget was. But yeah. But that's all I got for today. Do you have any recommendations?
Recommendations. Nothing like that that I've not talked about before, I would say I haven't had the chance to watch the final episode yet, but season 2 of My Adventures with Superman's been pretty solid.
Nice.
Once I get the chance, probably once we're done recording, I'll probably watch that today since I've got time. But it's been pretty interesting. I like the way that they introduced Supergirl. That like it was done in a very different way than is usual.
Yeah.
Also, the main villain for the season. Do you care about spoiling who the main villain this season is?
No, that's fine.
It's Brainiac for this one.
Of course, it's Brainiac.
Yeah, and it's been a pretty interesting interpretation of Brainiac at that. Like he's still very much Brainiac, but like he's different from the way I've seen Brainiac presented in other versions. Like there's something because I know Brainiac isn't typically like an emotionless like AI robot character, but like there's a petty humanity to this version of Brainiac that isn't typically present in other versions. You know what I mean? Like he seems a little more emotionally invested in the people he's fighting than is typical.
Okay.
So it's a very interesting interpretation of Brainiac. Also, other than the 3 dots with the lines through them, that is kind of his symbol, completely physically unrecognizable from any other version of Brainiac.
Really? Let me see.
Like if you were to look at him, your first guess would not be Brainiac.
I cannot spell.
That's okay. Get an adult to help you.
Yeah. I need one. Oh, yeah, I would never think that's Brainiac.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm okay with the design. It's just I would have never guessed that that's Brainiac.
Yeah, I like that they went for something a little less human. It provides that further physical separation between him and his adversaries, which I think is interesting considering, as I said before, how much closer to them he is emotionally speaking. Like how much more emotionally invested in Clark and Kara he seems to be as far as like fighting them.
Yeah, wow. That I mean, like I have no issue with it, but yeah, that is like an interesting redesign. Like it's like I don't know. It's almost like combining. I mean, this is the first things that pop up in my head. Like shoot, why am I forgetting the name of it right now? Like Mr. Sinister and it's either Rye or Bloodshot. I can't remember which one I'm thinking of right now.
Well, Rye and Bloodshot both have that pale skin red dot design.
Yeah.
Because Rye is supposed to be like the ultimate future culmination of the Bloodshot project.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I see like the armored Brainiac, but then I also see like the somewhat human.
Oh, is there? Okay, that must have been in the last episode. I haven't watched that yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So no, that's all fine. I don't care that much about that sort of spoiler. That's interesting though. If he's like a guy inside that shell.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. But yeah, human. Is he dressed in black and like does he have like black eyes and
he has like black black eyes with like red pupils.
Okay, that's actually not physically Brainiac. I just realized that that is Brainiac possessing Clark.
Oh, really? That's Clark?
Yeah, that's Clark.
Oh, wow. I mean, yeah, I guess he does have like a Superman like cape.
Yeah.
But he's like all black and like red. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, that's Brainiac possessing Clark. And like Kara had to physically fight Clark while Lois entered the simulation that Brainiac was holding Clark's consciousness in to help break him out from the inside.
Okay.
So there was a physical battle and a psychological one. And of course, Lois and Clark punched their way out of the simulation with the power of love and friendship. While Kara basically just does her best to hold Brainiac Superman off.
Okay.
But yeah, it's been a really interesting season, and it's so interesting to me how they have kind of pivoted the plot structure a bit, because season 1 was very episodic with this building tension of like the overarching plot in the background, while season 2 it was 4 episodes of pretty much that same thing, and then episode 5 just explodes into the story that is the rest of the season.
Okay.
So they went for something very different structurally with season 2, which I definitely like, because if every season has exactly the same structure, then where's the fun?
Yeah.
So going for more of a straightforward, like, Brainiac is the villain for 6 out of 10 episodes. It's it's been pretty interesting. But yeah, it's a good season. I'm liking it. They did one thing I'm really hoping when/if season 3 comes along. I'm pretty sure they're doing a 3rd season. One thing that I'm really hoping, though, for season 3 is no more contrived relationship conflicts between Lois and Clark, please. Season 1 had one. Season 2 has had one. Season 3 needs to do without it. Like, at this point, they've successfully affirmed their love for each other. Their relationship should be pretty well cemented by the time season 3 runs around. If we have another like big conflict in their relationship that threatens to end it, then that tells me right there that that's pretty much the only kind of stake outside of regular superhero stuff that this writing team knows how to present.
Yeah.
Because most of the non-superhero stakes have been about Lois and Clark's relationship.
Okay.
So, which, with a good Superman story, that's all well and fine. Lois is the most important character in a Superman story other than Superman.
Right.
But at the same time, doing it 3 seasons in a row would be repetitive and annoying.
Yeah.
So, because like in the first season, it's the whole "you lied to me" sort of thing that was annoying back when Invincible did it. And you see, for me, the show that really broke me with that trope, the whole like, "I can't believe you hid this from me, I'm your best friend" thing with the superhero secret identity stuff. The show that broke me with that was Daredevil. I got like, that was such a frustrating and grating element to introduce. I understand the initial like surprise and frustration with it, but to hold on to it for like seasons on end is petty. And like the fact that was such a huge thing in Daredevil was just annoying.
That's true.
I hated that part of that show. Like, as much as I love Daredevil as a show, that the way that Karen and Foggy treated Matt just for having one part of his life that they weren't a part of was really annoying. And then, like I said, it was annoying in Invincible as well, where Amber had already figured it out and then was still mad about it when Mark decided to tell her. And I understand Mark kind of told her for the wrong reasons. He told her so that she would stop being mad when he wasn't showing up for things. But at the same time, it was still annoying because it wasn't handled super well in that show. And then so in in My Adventures with Superman, the fact that like they basically did the writers for that series did the same thing with Lois, and she and Clark weren't even dating yet when that whole arc happened. So it's yeah. Luckily, it was like only like a 2-episode thing in My Adventures with Superman, where at the end of episode 4, she figures out that Clark is Superman. She spends all of episode 5 trying to trick him into telling her, and he doesn't fall for it. So eventually she forces him to show her by jumping off the top of the Daily Planet building while he's still in his Clark outfit, which means he doesn't have time to change before saving her, which, you know, proves that he's Superman to her.
Right.
But and then all of like episode 6 was Jimmy had gone missing, so they went to find him. They save him alongside Brain and Monsieur Malat, who are good guys in this show, mostly, and and the conflict is basically resolved by the end of that episode.
Okay.
So like it only went for like 2 episodes, 5 and 6 for season 1, but it was still annoying, and like Lois was definitely treating Clark unfairly.
Right.
But yeah, and then in season 2, the whole thing is like Lois starts to feel inadequate. Like she's not enough for Clark because he's Superman, he's perfect. You know, how could a regular human girl ever be enough for him? And Clark is also starting to worry that like, well, I'm like you know, an otherworldly being, I'm an alien, like will I really be enough for Lois? They were both starting to have like inadequacy problems concerning each other, not realizing that the other person thinks that their partner is perfect already. So neither of them really needs to change. But there does come a point where Lois is so convinced of her own inferiority to Clark, or at least that he would start to see her that way, that she tries to break off their relationship. But then right as she does that, Kara, who works for Brainiac, kidnaps Clark and takes him into space. So Lois and Jimmy go after them, and after they reunite, Lois and Clark, like, you know, there's this whole complicated thing, but eventually they're able to say they love each other again, and they, you know, there's all that.
Yeah.
So the, you know, the emotional conflict of the season is resolved there. But yeah, it's one of those things though where it's like, okay, after those 2 big relationship beats for these 2 characters, it's time to move on. Like, I don't care if more conflict is introduced in like season 4, assuming the show gets that far, but let's pump the brakes on it for season 3.
Right.
Like, it's like at this point, fans would kind of need a break from Lois and Clark's essentially perfect relationship being in some form of turmoil, because at this point in the series, with the way the 2 characters gel together, there's no reason for them to have another conflict like this so soon, especially. So like there's at that point it would just be, like I said, exhausting for fans. So yeah. Season 3, lighten up on Lois and Clark having trouble, just kind of make them a good power couple, have them, you know, work together on things like they have been, you know, just come up with a new way for emotional conflict to enter the thing. It's very clear that Jimmy and Kara have a thing for each other, so maybe season 3 could explore some of that. If we need relationship drama, maybe do it through the new couple.
Right.
Rather than dragging the established couple down into it for the 3rd time.
Right.
That's really my only criticism for season 2. Otherwise, really solid. And like I've been finding the new interpretations of villains and sidekick characters to be pretty interesting. Like, for example, Metallo is technically in this season, but he's not an individual. Metallo is a collective of drones.
Okay.
That at first were
What that looks
they were powered by like little artificial suns, a la Dr. Octopus and Spider-Man 2. But then after Lex Luthor took over the Metallo project, he started energizing them with kryptonite.
okay.
Specifically so that their weapons would be effective against Kryptonians. One last thing. This season did kind of an interesting thing with Superman that harkens back to the Silver Age. So, you know how in the Silver Age, Superman would whip out one-time use powers in pretty much every issue?
Yeah.
Like shooting rainbows from his fingertips, or making a tiny version of himself from the palm of his hand that has all his powers for some reason.
Yeah, he could just literally do anything.
Yep, and it would be that one issue he could do it, and then it would be gone. Something like that happened this season. In the Metallo episode, Superman figured out how to form force fields around other people or objects. Basically, like extending his own bioelectric field that gives him his bulletproof power onto something else temporarily. But he has to be making physical contact with it to do that.
Okay.
It only popped up in the one episode so far, though. It hasn't come back. So, as far as I know, it's a Silver Age Superman one-time use ability.
Yeah.
They gave him a Silver Age bee sting this season. He also used his ice breath for the first time, but it manifested more as like an energy beam from his mouth than actual breath.
Okay. Yeah, that's like, I mean, and there might be some comics that kind of do it as like a beam, but I've never seen or heard of it like a beam.
Yeah, it was really interesting. But yeah, so but he also hasn't repeated the ice breath since that point, and that was back in like, I want to say episodes 4 or 5 that he did that.
Okay.
But yeah, and the force field thing just straight up hasn't come back at all. It hasn't even come up again. So, but yeah, it's interesting, and I like seeing that sort of thing in a modern Superman story.
Yeah.
It's and like this show has already established that it's a very different interpretation of Superman, so it like kind of has the freedom to do something like that. And by different, I mean aesthetically, everything is different.
Right.
Like one of the things that makes this show good is the fact that thematically and narratively, it is just classic Superman as he should be.
Yeah.
Instead of a Superman inspired by injustice again.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, injustice completely colored everyone's perception of what Superman is.
Yeah, for over a decade.
Even
to this day, like I don't think, I mean, we're having small course corrections.
Yeah.
But
My Adventures is one of them.
Yeah. That's an example of a small course correction. If Superman Legacy does good, and if it does what I'm thinking, why am I blanking on the guy's name? Guardians of the Galaxy guy. James Gunn. If it does what I think James Gunn is doing, I think that will be the strong course correction of how people see Superman currently.
Yeah.
But like the past, what was that, 2011 Injustice?
Yeah, so like the past 13 years.
Yeah. So
the past 13 years they've been trying to make Superman edgy. And also James Gunn's new Superman movie isn't called Superman Legacy anymore. Now it's just Superman.
That's right. Yeah.
But yeah, like I like that My Adventures with Superman has kind of been prepping audiences for a return to form. Even if it is just children and more hardcore like Superman and cartoon fans. It's getting us ready for good Superman again.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm enjoying it. I think it's good, and I like how different aesthetically the characters are, and in some cases, how different they are characteristically. Like Livewire is a very interesting character in this show, which thinking back on like the history of Livewire as a character, she is absolutely not like a prominent member of Superman's Rogues Gallery. As it is, she was created for the 90s cartoon. Like she's not even a comic book original character. She was translated to the comics like Harley Quinn was.
Okay.
But yeah, like Livewire's not even like a comics original Superman character. So to see her so prominent in this show as both a recurring antagonist and an occasional supporting character has been really interesting. But yeah, it's just seeing all the weird and like reinterpretations of these characters has been interesting, and how like so many of them are changed to be tech based, which I'm hoping they do get away from that a little bit. I like it when Superman is fighting actual people with superpowers.
Right.
Like Livewire, they already ditched the whole tech thing with her and just made her a metahuman. But like Silver Banshee still has to use a helmet for her sonic powers in the show. So I'm hoping at some point, if they're going to keep bringing Silver Banshee back, which I don't think she's popped up in season 2 yet, but if they do want to use Silver Banshee more, I'm hoping they just kind of give her powers. But yeah, so it's been interesting. I like it though. It's like tiny. Again, like my only actual criticism is the relationship drama. Everything else is like that I could complain about is a teeny tiny little nitpick. Overall, My Adventures with Superman is, in my opinion, like a really successful adaptation of Superman as a character.
Okay.
Last little criticism: his new suit, because he got a new one in episode 9, like right at the end.
Right.
First off, no trunks.
Okay.
So that's, I think, okay. So I'm very pro trunks for Superman.
Yeah, same.
But with this specific design, they could have gotten away with a trunksless design if they gave him a red belt to break up that midsection a little bit more.
Is it all blue?
It's all blue. And I think he's got these like shoulder pads, these pointy shoulder pads that look terrible. So I think by next season, get rid of the shoulder pads. Even if you just get rid of the shoulder pads, the belt isn't completely necessary. Just get rid of the shoulder pads. He'll look so much better.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, it's very pointy.
Yeah, I hate it.
Like if that was like if that was the original, like, or if that was just the design of people, that'd be fine. But I see. I've watched the first episode of season 1. I've seen other images of Superman in this show. Yeah. Like if this was the original design, I'd have no problem. But yeah,
the new design is a bit of a downgrade. I like the new emblem on his chest. But yeah, like the shoulder pads make the overall look like it's just a huge downgrade just on those shoulder pads alone. I don't know who designed that suit, but they overdid it by just enough to make it look kind of bad.
Yeah, I do kind of like the new emblem. It's the like a whitish yellow outline around the emblem. I kind of like that.
Yeah, it's neat. I like it. It's shoulder pads got to go.
Yeah. Yeah, the shoulder pads as well as like I don't hate it, but I'm not a fan of that belt you're talking about that they have. That's just
Yeah,
like it's just it looks like a futuristic looking belt with like no direct color that really goes with the suit.
yeah, it should have been like a red belt or something, like what the new 52
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
Because the new 52 was very much about like get rid of the trunks, they look doofy. And they
Right.
gave him a red belt to break up the overall look. And yeah, I like the do the trunks. There are a lot of people who are still like the trunks look stupid. Shut up. Shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. The trunks are fine. They break up the monotony of the blue in his design.
Yeah.
And it's like it's iconic.
Yeah.
Like, what's wrong with the trunks? Why are they doofy? We're long past the perception that they look like underwear on the outside.
Yeah.
Like, because that was the joke everybody made. Like, oh, they wear the underwear on the outside.
Right. Yeah.
Like, people are long past that joke. So it's like, what's wrong with the trunks? They're strongman trunks.
Keep trunks at the very least. At the very least, change the color of that belt if you're going to keep that belt.
Yeah. Make the belt red or something.
Yeah.
Not yellow. I was thinking yellow because he has a yellow belt with his trunks in a lot of versions. But no, not a yellow belt if there's not going to be any trunks. So yeah, red belt.
Yeah. Yeah. At the very, very least, get rid of shoulder pads. Change color of belt. At the very, very least.
We know you're listening.
We
character designers for My Adventures with Superman.
This is clearly your favorite podcast.
Yeah, all you freaking Korean animators.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to get into this eventually. There's a bunch of stuff I'm behind on. Like eventually, I'll get a 1 month Disney Plus thing, watch Andor and any of the other stuff I care to watch, Star Wars or Marvel or whatever.
Yeah,
and then probably Adventures of Superman.
Yeah. Something that I've started noticing lately is whether it's for children, adults, or everybody, we're in a bit of a superhero animation boom right now.
Oh yeah.
Like superheroes have kind of like, because we had the live action boom for the past 20 years. So it seems like superheroes, as far as like the stuff that people are enjoying right now, has really moved to cartoons.
Yeah.
Cartoons or The Boys, but we don't talk about The Boys.
Yeah.
Because the boys is icky.
And the show hasn't been bad. I'll briefly mention like this is like the weakest season 4. I did watch it. Like I don't know. It's something that like all the seasons. There's two things I have an issue with The Boys as a whole. My one issue is the constant team breaking up, team getting together, team have issues, team not have issues. Like, yes, I understand that's a thing that would happen in a team like this, but it happens way too much in The Boys. And when you have the breakup of the team or when you have them get back together, whatever, there's always like these side plots that happen with characters when they're broken up with the team. And my God, like half these side plots are just eating up story time. Like season 4 had a side plot with Frenchie and a little bit of one with Kimiko, and like I just couldn't care less. And it's nothing against like their characters or anything. It's just we got bigger stuff to deal with right now. Like who cares about you, Frenchie? This sounds interesting from what I'm about to say, but it just doesn't fit in this season. Frenchie, who cares about a former who cares about a former gay lover you had who you had killed his family of?
Oh,
Like it's a bunch of that sounds kind of interesting, but like for this season it just doesn't fit. It feels like it's in the way. Kimiko also kind of has that. Huey has a little bit of that, but I will say Huey's side plot fits. It deals with his dad, and then it's not really spoilers. His dad is like dying, or he's not dying, that sort of stuff. It slightly feels like it's in the way, but by the end of the season, I feel like that side plot was needed because Huey has like a character arc by the end of the season that I think
real quick,
you needed that side plot. Yeah.
real quick, if it makes it easier, you can go ahead and talk about spoilers. You don't have to hold it back.
Yeah, you're not going to check this out. I get
No,
that.
I don't. I watched
Yeah.
the first 2 seasons of The Boys and I dropped off after that. I stopped caring a while ago.
Yeah, you might as well drop off there because I was about to say the first 2 seasons are kind of the best of it. I'm not even saying they're like great or amazing, but like after season 2, it starts going downhill kind of. Like season 3 is not bad, but it has some repetitive stuff, and I definitely felt it then. Season 4, I really felt the repetitiveness of the boys break up, the boys are back together, our random side plots that are getting in the way of this bigger, more interesting story.
Yeah.
Like all this stuff. And then
I remember when season 3 was new and coming out, and I thought to myself, like, oh, I'll have to watch it. Like, because I watched the first 2 seasons and I was thinking about like, picking it back up, but like the closer it got, the more I thought like I don't really need that kind of negativity in my life right now.
yeah. I
And
get
like,
that.
especially back then, I was in like a pretty depressed place. So I was like, you know what? I don't need something that's just going to make me think more negatively, because the show
Yeah.
has that effect. It's an extremely, extremely cynical show.
Oh yeah.
And it really causes you to think, at least if you think critically about the characters and their actions, like, who am I rooting for? Because
Yeah.
absolutely none of the characters are good people. Like, Huey generally is an okay dude.
Huey's pretty much the only one that's
But yeah,
generally
like at the same
okay.
time, though, he's so passive
Yeah.
that it's hard to get behind him as a character, because like his goal is to give up. He wants to put his head in the sand and stop paying attention. At least that's the way it was in season 2.
Starting off, that's the case. Seasons 3 and 4, he's definitely changed and developed. And then by the end of season 4, Huey had like, in my opinion, a great character arc.
Yeah.
It's
For me, when a show just like blanket is that unpleasant, to have a character whose arc takes that long to start actually interacting with what's happening, it can be difficult to stay invested. I couldn't, because at the end of season 2, Huey does give up. Huey does go do something else, and all I could think was like, okay, the only guy you can justify rooting for got what he wanted, so like,
right.
I guess that's it.
Yeah, like season 4, I'd mentioned my biggest complaint is just the constant breakup and get back together, which isn't just a season 4 problem. Like, it happens in every season, it seems like, or at least one or two members of the team decide I'm done. It happens every season, and I'm so tired of it.
Yeah.
And then the biggest, or that's my biggest complaint. And then another big complaint I have, which I guess this is what kind of, it's it's a part of The Boys, the show, but I don't know. This season it feels like a lot more. I'm okay with like like sexual humor and like going over the top and weird stuff and weird humor and sexual humor and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Season 4 feels like it's like almost too much. And I'm not trying to be like a wagging my finger. Yeah, I'm not trying to be like a prude or anything. It's just like it's and I'm not even like disgusted. It's just like, okay, yep, I get it. Like every freaking superhero has the grossest, weirdest kink. Yep, I get it now. Like it gets tiring.
Yeah.
Like it's no longer like funny. Every freaking superhero having the weirdest, creepiest kink or whatever.
Yeah, like why can't some superheroes just be okay with loving vanilla sex
Yeah, yeah.
with a consenting partner?
Vanilla sex, or just like you can be all about positions or whatever, but like all this like weird and wild stuff dealing with powers
Why is every
or
superhero's kink directly related to the power they have?
well, it's either the power they have, like in terms of like the ability, or just like the power in terms of like I'm at this place, I'm on this pedestal to where I can get this person to do whatever I want.
Yeah, like it
Which
makes
I
sense
get
for
that is a
character to be that way, but like for
yeah.
others, it's for everyone to have that.
Because I get that is a thing, but like 90 to 95%, yeah, I'll say 95% of the characters just have weird sex stuff going on, and it's like it's too much, and not in a like this is disgusting or this is a prude thing, but it's like
It's numbing.
It's numbing. Yeah. It's like, come on, like try harder. This feels like you're just trying to get like the sorry for watchers of The Boys, the average idiots that watch it to have a laugh and have a memory of the show.
Well, yeah, like it's superheroes for people who don't like superheroes, and
Yeah.
one of the big criticisms for superhero stories is that they aren't mature, and so and unfortunately, a lot of people interpret sexuality as inherently mature.
Yeah.
And especially if it's like niche sexuality, like getting deep into like representations or discussions of that sort of thing. And which I get, and there are places for representations of weird sex stuff. But like when you're trying to tell what is supposed to be a mature narrative in a like deconstructed superhero setting, having it everywhere just comes across as juvenile.
Yeah.
And like you said, we're not pearl clutchers, we're not finger waggers, we're not prudes. But like, yeah, and that's one of the things that got to me about The Boys, because like I mentioned before that I tend to be pretty okay with graphic sexuality in my media. I'm not super hung up on that sort of thing.
Yeah.
No matter what, and some of this might have been because I watched the first 2 seasons with my parents, but most, probably all of the sex scenes across those first 2 seasons made me viscerally uncomfortable.
Right.
Like it's just and again, it is the sort of show that's trying to make you uncomfortable. The Boys wants to do that. It's accomplishing its goal. My question is, why does this show want to make you so uncomfortable? Particularly when it comes to that sort of thing. Because it really it presents and again it all roots itself in the fact that the core thesis of The Boys is that there really are no good people. And it is very much a critique of celebrity culture. But like the thing is, these celebrity superheroes aren't the only wicked people in the series. There are like I said before, everybody in that show is an asshole.
Yeah.
Like almost none of those characters have reasonably ethically justifiable motivations.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, like there's a lot of personal stuff. Butcher wants revenge for what Homelander did to his wife. Frenchie, and then there's Mother's Milk, and he, and then Kimiko, and then Huey doesn't want anything to do with it. So it's like the only character on The Boys. Well, no, there were two to start with, Huey and Butcher. They were the only two members of the actual Boys who had a personal motivation to go after the Seven, from my understanding of those first two seasons. I might be misremembering things, but I really don't feel like Mother's Milk, Frenchie, or Kimiko had a personal reason other than Butcher and Huey just kind of took them in.
Mother's Milk, forgot what season it was mentioned or whatever. Like his dad was killed by a soup or something. I think it's something like that. Or his dad combated soups and got killed or something like that. Kimiko, it was almost just like a stray pup they found along the way.
Yeah.
Which I like her character, but I think her dislike for soups more ties in with like she just likes the group / she has a bond with Frenchie, where she's going along the way, because really, like, if you're like, who should she be going after? It should be the rising star or whatever. It was the cult group that basically raised her to be a killer / assassin growing up. If anything, she should go after them, which there's a tiny subplot of that within season 4, and then just kind of gets dropped. Which I'm not saying to focus on that, because there were bigger stuff to focus on in season 4, but we just kept going to all these stupid subplots. Yeah, overall, I think her involvement is she has a bond with them, and so she's doing it. Frenchie, I really don't know. I think it is one of those things where, like, he's worked with Butcher and Mother's Milk before, and I guess he just wants to help.
Yeah.
Or maybe he found out about information that they found out about superheroes, and maybe he's like, okay, I'll be good and let's combat them. I don't know. I don't truly know his motivation regarding wanting to kill soups.
Yeah. And the thing is, for a lot of like these unaddressed subplots and stuff, if they don't like finish it out by the end of season 5, which Kripke has said is the last one, they could, like, Gen V has kind of shown us they can just Walking Dead this.
Yeah.
Where they just do spin-offs once the main story is done. The thing is, though, I can 100% see, because like Endgame of this, they kill Homelander. That has to be he has to be the
final. Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, oh, sorry, you go ahead. Well, I'll mention how season 4 ends. Basically, the lead up to season 5, just to show the stakes that are happened, to show that, like, okay, this is definitely going to be the final season. If it's not, there's maybe one more season after. Basically, this is in like season 3. Maybe it was mentioned in season 2. I can't remember. But Victoria Newman, who's like secretly a soup, who's trying to run for president, sort of thing.
She's the head exploder, right?
She's the head exploder, yeah. I can't remember if she was in season 2 or not.
Yeah, like at the end of season 2, they revealed she's the head exploder.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that happens in season 4. Like, she's she's working with Homelander and stuff and trying to get presidency and all that. And then eventually she is like, this is not a good idea. Like, Homelander is just going to puppet me my entire life until he kills me, sort of thing. So she, like, the last episode or two, it's a good build up, but essentially she turns to the boys, turns to Huey, and is like, hey, I've messed up. Like, I want to side with you guys. I want to help you guys. Help me kill Homelander, and I will owe you guys many, many favors. Like, please just help me do that. And all of them say yes, yay. And then last minute, Butcher comes out of nowhere. Butcher seemed like he was going to die because he took V, like temporary V, which is like a drug that gives you temporary superpowers. It's also, none of the people that have superpowers are actually special. I don't know if that was revealed in season 2 or not.
Pretty much, I believe it was. I think that might have been revealed in season 1.
Okay, yeah, where basically their parents like signed them up for this to be injected with V, and it gave them superpowers when they were babies. So Butcher has like these powers, and he kills Victoria Newman in front of everyone, in front of like all the boys, and they're like, what are you doing, man? Like
why would you do that in front of boys?
Because originally like she was the bad guy. Like we need to kill Newman, then we'll try to kill Homelander, sort of thing. Because they were trying to make a virus that would kill Newman and eventually kill Homelander. But Butcher, he's like dying from like this Temp V type cancer, basically, and he has a big tumor in his head. And he keeps seeing who's the guy that plays Negan again?
Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
He keeps seeing Jeffrey D. Morgan everywhere, and he's talking to Jeffrey D. Morgan. Turns out by the end of the season, Jeffrey D. Morgan is not real. It's Butcher's inner dark self talking to him, basically saying like all the soups need to die, sort of thing. Eventually he gives into that. There's good reason why he does, but he gives into that, and basically Butcher kills Victoria Newman, which was this whole big plot that all the other boys were like, yes, this is how we're going to defeat Homelander. Well, now she's dead. Butcher takes the virus sample that they had created. He's now driving off to somewhere, we don't know where he's pretty much going to try to make the virus into like a global thing, killing all superheroes, all soups, basically. So that's his thing at the end of season 4. All the other boys, they are now going into hiding because Victoria Newman, who was running for presidency, is now dead, as well as there were footage and tapes of the current president trying to assassinate Victoria Newman. He's now arrested, and martial law basically gets called on the United States, or not the current president that happened with. It was another senator or another running mate or whatever that happened.
Someone political.
Yeah. And so like basically the president that is currently in office is like, I'm declaring martial law. Like there's like chaos that is happening. So I am deputizing Homelander. I'm deputizing Homelander, and Homelander basically steps up to the podium as like, all soups are now going after, there's so much stuff. Another thing is like Starlight had her own like Starlighters movement where it was like activists that were like fighting against Vought, essentially. And basically he was like, all Starlighters will be brought to justice. Like, I'm declaring martial law, because it was basically, it was framed that the Starlighters were the ones that had killed Victoria Newman and had done this and done that, to where martial law is happening, and Homelander's like, all superheroes that are like working with VOD and stuff and in other cities are now deputized by the US government and are now going after Starlighters. Which means it can also be beyond Starlighters because like they now essentially have authority, so now they could just like wreak havoc in trying to find people and kill people. And so the boys, aside from Butcher, all get passports and are all like, we need to leave. We need to leave the country. Like, this is going to be very
We gotta
bad.
get the heck out of here.
Like, the country, bad stuff is going to happen very soon. And so they're trying to leave. But basically, it's too late. The deputized superheroes and stuff capture each and every one of them, sort of thing. And so, yeah, we'll just have to see where it goes from there. And essentially, Homelander is not president, but he basically has the power of the president.
Yeah, it's very. It screams very Marvel's Secret Empire to me.
Yeah.
When Captain America, who was a Hydra agent at the time, basically gets like massive executive powers after his really long thread of political schemings that happened in his solo series.
Yeah. So I mentioned all that to basically say, like, season 5 is definitely going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Season like that ending with season 4 clearly shows like, okay, yeah, the show is about to end.
Yeah.
Like big stuff is going to happen.
Earlier, when I mentioned that like the end game is clearly to kill Homelander, and I mentioned it in like the context of like keeping the franchise alive through spin-offs and such. One thing that is absolutely clear is whether you recognize that he's the villain of the series or not, he is 100%. Like, there's no argument about that. So, you always get those people who are like, "Well, is he really the villain?" Yes, he is.
You people would be the ones that die at the very beginning of season 4, where Homelander and a couple of the other superheroes need martyrs.
Yeah.
To blame the Starlighters and have people turn against the Starlighters, to where Homelander gives Black Noir and the Deep, he gives them baseball bats and is like, kill them, bash their brains in, and like the fans of Homelander are like, wait, what? You're joking, right? No, you're gonna be martyrs. Thank you for your service. Let's just get their brains bashed in.
Oy vey. So anyway, all that is to say, if the end game of the series is to kill Homelander, which would have to happen in this series, The Boys, the main series, otherwise, like, what even the hell?
Yeah. I mean, since season 1, that has been the ultimate goal. Is like, yes, there's the stop Vought element, but it's kill Homelander.
Kill Homelander. So like, stop Vought can come in like across the course of like a streaming cinematic universe or whatever they want to end up doing with this franchise. But the thing is, all this is to say, Homelander is objectively the most popular character in the series.
Yeah.
Based primarily, it's not even really in the scripting or anything else about the series. It is purely the direction and raw charisma of Anthony Starr as an actor that has made Homelander popular. Like, I think it's pretty plain to see that objectively Anthony Starr makes Homelander who he is because he's that good.
Yeah, because of Anthony Starr, like, Homelander in The Boys is one of the top TV villains of all time.
Yeah. So here's the thing. If you want to continue this series, but you also have to kill Homelander at the end of it.
Yeah.
Like not series. If you want to continue this universe with other series, and you have to kill Homelander at the end of the main series, that by itself is going to drop viewership.
Oh yeah, it'll be
Like
it'll be a
no one
big drop
has.
in viewership.
I'm gonna say no one has any reason to care what happens in the universe of The Boys after Homelander is dead, because it's literally what the entire series has been building to.
Yeah, with the boys, unless you like love the college kids that are introduced in Gen V, and
Yeah.
you want to follow like all the other superhero stuff within the boys universe, sure. But with what we started, like the plot is kill Homelander.
Yeah.
At the end of season 5, he's 99% going to die, or he should. If you're doing a good narrative, season 1 to 5,
Yeah.
Homelander must die at the end.
Yeah, because if this is the bad guy wins sort of show, then like, what has been the point? Because like, if the show is so viscerally unpleasant and uncomfortable, as previously discussed, if the bad guy doesn't die at the end, then what reason is there for anyone to ever revisit it or go back to it? Like, what is the point of the story if you don't
Yeah.
kill Homelander at the end? So like, they have to. They absolutely have to. It would be horrible for the series, in like everything it communicates, if Homelander doesn't die at the end.
Yeah. Like Homelander has to die at the end. You could still have like the remnants, like Vought rise through its ashes sort of thing, because like a lot of stuff happens with Vought at the end of season 4. But that doesn't mean Vought as a company is done. Like it's still around. You could still have that rise and do something with that with Gen V or whatever. But again, it's like what you said. Viewership is going to drop. Oh, Teo's gone, I think. Hello? Can you hear me? I'll mention this for listener. Sorry, it's a slight.
Did you hear me repeating "Hello, are you there" over and over again?
I was actually saying hello. Are you there? You had
Okay.
logged out and then went back in.
Okay, my dad called me.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
Okay, so all right.
No, but basically, like closing out what I was saying is pretty much reiterating what you said is like you can continue the whole Vought still being around and combating them, or I mean, like it could even change to where like after the boys, Vought is now like good soups are kind of in it, like Starlight or whatever, to where like they're trying to reestablish Vought, not under Vought, but like seeing that maybe an organization like this may be needed.
Yeah.
That could be something you explore with Gen V and other stuff. Even with that, whether Vought is still bad and you're fighting them, or soups are trying to change it, no matter what, viewership is going to drop after season 5 of Boys.
Yeah.
Because it's like what you said, the driving force is Homelander, and Homelander has to die at the end of this.
Yeah.
But
yeah, like there's no way around that from like a decent writing perspective.
yeah, because if it doesn't, it's yeah, it's just not good, right? It's you trying to milk this further, which I feel like you've kind of done. Like, yes, 5 seasons isn't a lot, but like my opinion, this show could have only been like 4.
Oh yeah,
I was about to say 3. I think 3 would kind of cramp it a little bit too much. But this could have been 4 seasons. A lot of the stuff that happens in this season, like, could have been half a season. Like the stuff that really matters, none of this subplot stuff that doesn't really matter. You could make that like 4 episodes instead of 8. You could probably do the same with some of the previous seasons.
And the thing is, I might go back and like watch the show all the way through once it's over. Because the thing is, one of the reasons that I didn't want to come back for season 3 after having watched the first 2 seasons is at the time I had no idea how long the show was going to be.
Yeah.
So like I was thinking like, well, like how much longer, if I want to commit myself to the story, how much longer do I have to tolerate this world? So
Yeah.
it's one of those things where it's like I might go, like once it's finished, I might go back and like uh and for me, one of the ways I've recently found I can motivate myself to get through something that I otherwise wouldn't do or wouldn't want to do is by telling myself it's a project of some kind. So like I would probably be like, I'll take notes and things like that, like try to come at it from an analytical
Yeah.
perspective, just for the sake of breaking it down and figuring it out, and maybe seeing if that gives me a deeper appreciation for the series overall. Because as it is, there are so many things about it I have a hard time looking past just from the outside of it, like
Yes.
its origin point, and my personal opinions on Garth Ennis, uh, as well as like just other things, like just also the general unpleasantness of the show is
Yeah.
is another deterrent. So like, but like knowing that like it's gonna cap out at like, how many episodes a season are there? 8.
8 each episode or each season.
Okay, so 8 times 5, that's
So
40.
40.
Yeah,
Yeah.
capping out at about 40 episodes. If you don't watch Gen V, then
Yeah.
like that's doable. That's only 40 hours of my life.
Right.
I waste that at work every week. So so it's
Yeah, which you'll have some time before
oh yeah.
deciding to watch it all, because season 5 doesn't come out till 2026. So
Yeah, oh goodness, that is a good long gap, isn't it?
yeah.
They might honestly be waiting to see what happens with the election before they continue writing.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. That could be one of the elements to it. Because yeah, a lot of times it is playing off of what's currently happening.
Yeah.
So yeah, Gen V season 2 is supposed to come out next year, I think. I might eventually. It's not on the top of my list. I might eventually watch all of Gen V. I recently watched the first episode like a couple weeks ago, and it's not bad. It's just, I don't know. Like, it's just like, what's the point? like for me personally, what's the point? Because we had talked about the Homelander thing. We had talked about the boys. The strongest thing with the boys TV show from seasons 1 through 4, because yes, you might like elements, you might like characters, but it wavers throughout the whole show. The one thing that is consistently good, if not great, is Homelander.
Yeah.
Homelander is the one consistent thing where it's like, my God, like this guy's horrible. He's a monster, but like I just want to see more of him. Like he is awful, but
Yeah.
like,
but you want to see
fight.
you.
Exactly. Fighting him or seeing what is going on behind closed doors at Vought with him is usually the most interesting stuff in the show. Because I would say before, at the beginning of the show, like season 1 and stuff, it's what's going on with the boys. My issue with the boys themselves is everything feels so repetitious, specifically what I mentioned at the beginning of this of, we're together, now we split up, we're together, now a couple of us go off because we split up and don't like this anymore. It's so much of that, and I'm so tired of that.
Yeah, and the thing is, even since season 1, the boys themselves have been the least interesting part of the show.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But
Yeah. And honestly, it's one of those things where as I was watching the first 2 seasons, it gets to a point where I almost forget the boys are even in it because all the superhero stuff is so interesting.
yeah.
That like it's and like all this back, behind the scenes intrigue of everything that's going on with Homelander and with all the other soups. And it's like, and then when it gets back around to like going back to the boys and showing you what they're up to, it's like, oh right, I forgot these guys are the main characters, aren't they?
Yeah. I forgot the show is called The Boys. I thought it was Homelander and evil scum.
Well, you see, for me, it was like, oh, I forgot that when this show being named The Boys is referencing these guys and not the Seven. Where, like, you think of the Seven as the boys in the title, because the show
You
not
see
only
them more or
spends a lot
something.
of time with them, but also like they're so much more interesting.
Yeah. No, but yeah, it is what it is. It's not the worst show ever, but there are a lot of complaints I have with it. But at the end of the day, am looking forward to season 5. Even though I wasn't a big fan of season 4, the last episode of season 4 I liked a good bit.
Yeah.
So we'll just see where it goes.
Well, that, and like, from what I hear a lot of people are saying that it dropped off this season, but
yeah,
I hear that it hasn't gone so far downhill that one more season would be cause for like abandoning it. You know what I mean? Like, at this point, with it going downhill and knowing that we're close to the end, most viewers are going to be like, well, we may as well just see it through.
Yeah, it's worth continuing the ride.
Yeah.
If you had this season and they announced midway through that, hey, we've got 3 more seasons after this, I'd probably drop off.
7. Yeah.
I would probably drop off. But yeah, season 5, looking forward to it. With all that said, I have to go poop in a second.
Yeah, I gotta call my dad back.
Yeah. So I have been Brandon.
And I have been Teo.
And now we're not. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye. Get out here. Go away. Beat it. Shoo. I'll kick you.